Okay, so I went to the movies for the first time in quite some time because, having a kid who's 1 year and 4 months old, you really don't have the time to go to the movies as much as you want. Shit, I haven't even seen Dune yet in IMAX. I haven't seen The Last Omen. I haven't seen The Devil on Saturday Night Live, whatever that movie was. So I don't have time to go to the movies as much as I would like. So I actually had a Saturday afternoon to see it. I finally saw it, and here are my thoughts on Abigail. A group of would-be criminals kidnaps a 12-year-old daughter of a powerful underworld figure, holding her for ransom in an isolated mansion like the Resident Evil mansion. Their plan starts to unravel when they discover the young captive is actually a bloodthirsty vampire. Now, I saw the trailer a couple months back, and I thought, it gave away the whole plot. Why am I going to go see it? Because I already know what's going to happen. You have these would-be criminals. I'm pretty sure they all have a backstory, a sad backstory that we're all going to find out throughout the movie. And when it finally occurs, or when things finally start to happen, they're going to discover, oh, she's a vampire, and the whole thing was them just like being food for her. The whole thing was a plot to feed her, and why the fuck am I going to go see it? And you know what? Son of a bitch, I was wrong. I am not as smart as I thought I was. I thought I had this whole movie figured out by the trailer, and then 30 minutes in, I'm like, nah, this is exactly the way it's going to be. And then like, oh, then this happens. And then like, oh shit, really? And then that happens. And I'm like, no way. Well, that totally just changed. What? This movie surprised me. And I didn't even see who was in it, so it was great to see Melissa Barrera in it. Again, I'm a huge fan of hers. Again, I wasn't a fan of hers prior to seeing Scream movies, but again, I think what they did to her was a major injustice, so I'm glad she's still getting work. And in this film, she did fantastic. So she's the main lead. She plays a crook who, again, has a backstory, and she seems to be the one who's very sympathetic to protecting Abigail from everybody else. And everybody has their own little traits. You have the hacker, you have the kid, you have the big dumb guy, and then you have the major star who just shows up for one day of filming, and that's Gustavo. How do you say his name? I can't even say that. Mr. Esposito. Anyway, you see him and you're thinking, okay, I've seen this movie before where they hire a major actor. He shows up on set for maybe 2 days, but it turns out, they got him. He's the big get. So he's going to be the major bad guy in the film. And as the movie progresses, I'm like, oh shit, I was wrong. Now, when it comes to the performances, all of them were pretty much mid, in my opinion, but the one that really stood out was Dan Stevenson. I never seen him before. I don't know who he was, but he plays a crook from New York, and he just had this swagger about him, this screen presence, and I just loved how he sold me as far as having a background and an attitude, a vernacular accent. He was really the one character who I think, in my opinion, who devoted himself to be completely this person when you compare them to all the other actors in the film. Because there's also Kirk Dunnard. He's the large muscle guy. You've seen him in Wolverine and a few other movies. He's always more or less playing the same part. He's a cool guy from what I hear, but he's more or less playing the same part. He's playing the same role here in this movie. But again, Dan Stevenson's one who really stood out for me, a great actor and a great role in this movie, and a lot of great surprises at the end. So again, bravo to him for being, in my opinion, the star of the show. As far as the beats go, you're expecting, the cliche moments when the sound drowns out for that big jump scare to happen, and it does. But again, they're more creative and inventive with this film, so I will give it that. It did keep surprising me. It was fun to watch, and I enjoyed it. Was it scary? No. It wasn't scary at all. I mean, it was entertaining. It was gory, and I was glad to see Evil Dead loads of blood. Let me repeat that. Evil Dead level loads of blood. What am I trying to say here? I'm glad to see Evil Dead buckets of blood at the end of the movie, which again was appropriate for the context. And I also love the film that it's more or less self-aware of what it is. When they discover that Abigail is a vampire, everyone starts naming movies like anybody would in real life. Now, I won't say vampires are real life, but if we're all in that situation, how do you kill a vampire? You just start naming off movies and ways to kill them. And that's exactly what they did. And it was cool to see that none of those tropes work because it's just movies. But it's cool, and it was fun because, again, like I said, it's self-aware. It was poking fun of itself, and it was just an overall good time. The film can be gory at times, but it's nothing that you haven't seen before. There really wasn't any inventive kills. I mean, we've all seen vampires exploding in sunlight, especially in What We Do in the Shadows and things like that. So you're really not seeing anything innovative when it comes to the kills. So I was disappointed with that. I mean, having the vampire yell with his teeth and the fangs out and biting the neck, we've seen that a billion times. So that's the one con I'm thinking about with this movie. I wish there were more inventive kills in this movie. And the one thing that kept bothering me throughout the film is that it felt familiar to me, like I had seen this movie before. You have a big, beautiful mansion right in the middle of nowhere. You have a person in the film in a white dress, ends up covered in blood at the end. You have the protagonist at the end of the film being surrounded by exploding bodies, and the protagonist leaves covered in blood with that shot on her face. And I'm like, where have I seen this before? And it'll come to me later. And as I'm doing the review, I find out it's the same director as Ready or Not. I'm like, that's exactly what it was. It's the same movie. It's more or less the same movie, just different little plot points that are moved. Instead of a game, you have a vampire, and technically it's kind of like a game without spoiling too much of it. It's the same movie in my opinion. So again, the film was a lot of fun. I did enjoy it. It's a fun one-time view, in my opinion. I'm going to give it a thumbs up, but it just felt very familiar. And again, same director, same concept, just little plot points moved. There you go. Am I the only one who feels cheated when you feel that way? I mean, yes, it's a good movie. I'm not taking anything away from Abigail, but again, when you find out, oh, the director who made this, and it's the same movie, it's kind of like those John Hughes movies where all of them are kind of like the same thing. You know, family trying to rush to vacation, they forget something, or they're rushing to a wedding, they forget somebody's important day. You see what I'm talking about? 16 Candles, Home Alone. It's like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I want more originality, and this film was fun. But again, that's the one thing that kind of icks me sometimes, is that when we see a film and it feels familiar, and I'm like, why am I not enjoying this as much as I should? Then you find out it's the same director. They're more or less making the same movie. You know, you can argue with me if you want. Technically, it's a different type of setup, but again, it's the same location, same concept, and the ending's the same way. So was Abigail a good movie? Yeah, I had a good time. Will I buy it on Blu-ray? Probably not. It was a one-time great experience movie. It's a lot of fun. It's a great date movie. And it's, if you want to see a fun movie that's not too serious, not too scary, but a fun, you know, movie that's going to keep you on your toes as far as guessing. In other words, if you're the type of person who enjoys trying to solve who's going to do what and what's going to happen, I think this movie will keep you guessing. If you figure it out, you're full of shit. Because usually I'm good at figuring these things out, and this movie kept me guessing, and I was totally surprised by the end. So again, I'm giving Abigail a fun thumbs up. And I hope you enjoyed this review. Did you see Abigail? Did you like it? What did you think? Leave some comments down below. I would appreciate it. And again, if you liked the video, please subscribe. I love horror movies. I love all types of movies. And again, I am part of the 31 and 31 comedy expose that's coming out later in May. I got a ton of comedy films to watch, and I'm going to be putting reviews out for each of those movies that I see. So you're going to see a hodgepodge, a load, Evil Dead buckets of just comedy review movies coming up in the next few weeks. So don't say I didn't warn you. Subscribe. Take care. Bye.